critical road structure. Some states get 110 billion naira.
The second memorandum was for the award of 3 different roads. The first is Dikwa Mate Mungunu Road.
House of Representatives deliberates on challenges in power sector.
About 1.something trillion, 1.2 trillion has so far been invested, and there is no commensurate result.
COVID-19 cases in Nigeria hit over 30,000 as NCDC announces more than 400 new cases.
Today we shall revisit COVID-19 situation reports in the states.
Now, if you would like to know how it feels to be in hospital or to be hospitalized during this coronavirus pandemic, remember when the Titanic was sinking and the band continued to play? Well, the world is the band today following the devastation of the outbreak.
Now, daily statistics of COVID-19 cases do indicate a consistent increase over the past month. In fact, the number of cases from the NCDC as of today shows that Nigeria has hit the 30,000 mark after recorded the first case more than 4 months ago.
Now, right now, all states of the Federation, including the FCT, have cases of COVID-19. Incidentally, Kogi and Cross River states that were somewhat living in a pseudo-scientific lingo and allegedly enjoying immunity have been struck by the virus with a total of 5 cases each.
Now, but Lagos remains the worst hit with the highest number of confirmed cases at well over 11,000. The Federal Capital Territory is next on the chart with at least 2,000 cases, while Oyo follows with over 1,500 cases.
Now, during the Presidential Task Force daily briefings, the PTF chairman and secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, disclosed the dramatic increases of COVID-19 cases in the country, with male and female infection ratio put at 70 to 30.
Quite frankly, Kirian, another worrisome reality the Minister of Health pointed out is the fact that the virus is spreading faster than the health system can handle, an attestation that puts the mortality rate, the mortality figure now at over 650.
Now, according to NCDC, 3 out of 5 deaths are within age 50 and above, the worst hit being the top echelon of the society, while there are higher incidents of cases among the younger generation.
Now, for Nigeria, the reality of mitigating community transmission may not be a low-hanging fruit at the moment, especially as states have relaxed restrictions. And the West African Examinations Council, of course, has indicated that it would hold its exams from the 4th of August to the 5th of September, even though there is no indication as to whether that will pan out, considering the directive issued yesterday by the Minister of Education. But domestic flights resumed yesterday.
And one would actually say that the life is gradually returning to normal, but regrettably, Nigerians still refuse to adhere to safety protocols aimed at checkmating COVID-19. And the question is, how well can normalcy be felt with adequate response to the spike in community transmission? What support intervention will be coming from the government, and how equipped are the isolation centers, especially the subnationals? These and more issues will form the truth of our conversation this morning as we examine situation reports from states. I am Kirian Umayo.
And just like my colleague Kirian indicated earlier, the band of the Titanic was playing its tune. What tune are we playing, and what course of change should government at all levels strike? I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Kirian and also welcoming you to the program. We're reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. And of course, we'll also have our newspaper review segment, business and others. But first, let's join Chimaobi Walter Lanji for the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Walter.
Hello, good morning, Kingsley and Kirian. It's good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Nigeria. Here's the morning news. The Federal Executive Council has approved over 110 billion naira towards the provision of critical roads infrastructure in the northeast, southeast, and the Niger Delta regions of the country. The Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, made this known at a media briefing after the weekly meeting of the council. And meanwhile, Minister of Education Adamu Adamu debunked media reports on the planned reopening of schools by the federal government.
The second memorandum was for the award of 3 different roads. The first is Dikwa Mate Mongunu Road for 60.273 billion. Biunuman Road, linking Borno and Adamawa for 15.527 billion.
Schools under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Education will not reopen on August 4th or anytime soon.
And meanwhile, plans have been finalized by the federal government towards the establishment of cottage industries in the 774 local government areas of the country for enhanced economic well-being and job creation. The Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, George Akome, announced this while briefing newsmen after presenting his scorecard to the Federal Executive Council.
We're talking about millions of stuff, over 10 million. And you see that when it is being assembled or manufactured here, the number of people who will get employment, who will have this employment opportunities, the number is going to be quite high.
So there's a green initiative that we're launching. It's an agricultural initiative with the Brazilian government, over $1.1 billion initiative in which would also help to create jobs.
And Minister of State Petroleum Resources, Timothy Silva, says the federal government is very mindful of the likely impact higher petroleum prices would have on Nigerians and is working very hard to alleviate this by rolling out an auto gas scheme which will provide Nigerians with alternative sources of fuel at a lower cost. Explaining the reason for the decision to deregulate the downstream subsector, Timothy Silva said, after a thorough examination of the economics of subsidizing petrol for domestic consumption, the federal government concluded that it was unrealistic to continue with the burden of subsidizing petrol to the tune of trillions of naira every year, considering that subsidy was benefiting in large part the rich rather than poor and ordinary Nigerians. The minister stressed that with deregulation, government will no longer continue to be the main supplier of petroleum products, as it will encourage the private sector to take over the role of supplier of petroleum products. That means also that market forces will henceforth determine the prices at the pump according to the prevailing global crude oil price. In line with global best practices, government will continue to play its traditional role of regulation to ensure that this strategic commodity is not priced arbitrarily by private sector suppliers. And in the meantime, when the federal government privatized the power sector several years back, its ambition was to replicate the success story of the telecommunications sector. Years after, the difference appears to be in the change of names, from NEPA to PHCN to GENCOs and DISCOs. Now, the House of Representatives says there has to be a change in the narrative.
And there's no commensurate result.
We've been engaging the discourse to provide a framework of how to provide a service reflecting tariff for all customers of different classes.
And to other stories, now 416 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 have been reported by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC. Now, these new cases reported in 21 states and the FCT bring the total number of confirmed cases to 30,249 in the country. In the breakdown, Lagos has 150, Rivers 49, Oyo 43, while Delta has 38, FCT has 26, Anambra and Kano have 20 cases each, while Plateau has 18. Others are Edo with 14 cases, Bayelsa and Enugu have 13 cases each, Osun 12, Kwara 10, Borno 8, Ogun has 7, while Kaduna has 6. Imo has 4, Bauchi and Gombe with 3 cases each. Niger has 2 and Adamawa recorded 1 case. Lagos State has the highest total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases with 11,520. The FCT is next on the chart with 2,348, while Oyo follows with 1,573. A total of 12,373 patients have so far been discharged following recovery, with an unfortunate 684 deaths recorded. All right, and that concludes the news highlights for now. Good morning, Nigeria on COVID-19 situation reports in states. We'll continue with Kingsley and Kirian immediately after this break. I'm Chimobi Walter. Good morning.
Main way coronavirus spread is when infected people sneeze and cough. Small droplets of fluid expelled by cough or sneezes are laced with viruses looking for new respiratory tracts to infect. When a sick person sneezes around someone who is healthy, the virus can land in the nose, mouth, or even the eyes, causing an infection. Symptoms can include fever, cough, shortness of breath. Symptoms may appear within 2 to 14 days. Seek medical advice if you develop symptoms and have been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19, or if you live or have recently been in an area with ongoing spread of COVID-19. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Today on Epic Lane 9 Job Mission, we visit Mrs. Johnson live in Lagos.
Ah, Helen Paul.
Hello, madam. Would you like to join us on this mission?
Yes, but how?
Just one question for you. How do you keep your toilet clean?
I use regular detergent and bleach for washing and removing yellow stains. I have been using it for years.
Oh, madam, the regular detergents and bleach are used for washing clothes. To clean your toilet properly, you need Harpic 10X. It is specially made for stains in the toilet. Harpic Thick formula settles on stains and gives 10 times better cleaning compared to regular detergents and bleach.
Wow, now I'm convinced, Helen Paul.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that she's part of the mission, the next house is yours.
In this time of despair, our country, Nigeria, needs us now more than ever. We stand a chance to save our great country, Nigeria. A chance to rise up from this pandemic stronger and better. What will be the gain if we do not learn from other countries and observe the lockdown to stop the further spread of the virus? If we loosen our guards and allow this virus dome our very existence, then what have we gained? This is the call to every Nigerian to unite as one and stop the spread of this deadly virus. Stay at home and stay safe. Remember, the virus doesn't move unless we move. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network. We have observed the lockdown. We have practiced the measures in order to curb the spread of the virus, but we can do better. The coronavirus spread is increasing daily, and only together can we cut down the numbers and defeat the spread of the virus. Remember, COVID-19 is not a death sentence, and a recovered patient cannot spread the disease. Do not stigmatize. Do not hesitate to report any case, or if you have come in contact with anybody that has been infected with COVID-19. If you have cough and fever, please stay at home and call your state hotline. Find state numbers at www.covid19.ncdc.gov.ng. Remember, it is for your own good and for the good of every Nigerian. Let us do better and defeat the virus. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Time for business news with Kunle Adeye.
One of the key components of the Economic Sustainability Plan is Mass Agricultural Program, which targets to ensure cultivation of between 20,000 and 100,000 hectares of new farmland in every state. One of the expected results of this is the direct and indirect jobs it will create. An investment expert, Niyi Akinshiju, said agriculture is an inherent economic culture of Nigeria, which has received attention from governments in the past 5 years, especially the active role played by the Central Bank of Nigeria. He emphasized that inclusion of agriculture in the economic sustainability plan shows how vital the sector is to economic growth.
The government targeting that sector is laudable. Not only laudable, it is one in realization of our objective reality that if we have to diversify our economy, our focus must be on agriculture.
And at the close of trading on Wednesday, July 8, 2020, the equities markets closed on a positive note as Nigeria's Stock Exchange All-Share Index appreciated by 0.75% to close at 24,278.07 basis points, as against plus 0.30% appreciation recorded previously. With Business News, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Many thanks, Kunle Adeyeye, for the business package. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
Let's welcome Bayo Tayabi for the review of newspapers today.
Thank you, Kelly, and good morning. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's begin with the Punch newspaper. Punch says from top to bottom, electronic payment deals hit 50.3 trillion naira in 5 months. Electronic payment deals hit 50.3 trillion naira in 5 months. That's on page 22. Slain IRT corpse family sues Malami and demands killer soldiers trial. That's page 16. Nigerian students won't resume school and take WASC. That's according to the federal government. Panel probes Magu over alleged ownership of Dubai properties. With 2 riders, probe team seeks answers to mysterious release of 157 oil tankers. Umar assumes duty. Suspended anti-graft boss spends 3rd day in detention. Fear, caution, and complaints as airlines resume domestic flights. That's on page 23. Boko Haram kills 20 soldiers returning from Borno operation. Boko Haram kills 20 soldiers returning from Borno operation. 7 killed in explosion on NPDC oil platform. That's page 23. Ondo governorship poll, APC screens Akredolu and 5 other aspirants. Details on page 13. Seized $9.77 million and 74,000 pounds meant for business. That's according to the former NNPC Group Managing Director, Yakubu. Details on page 22. Luth petitions panel over failed surgery, a cosmetic surgeon. And Ondo Assembly suspends 3 anti-impeachment members and leader resigns. Details can be found on page 16. Kirian.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. VP, let's go to the Nation. Above the nameplate, VP Oshibajo alleges blackmail plot. Matter for probe. Page 8 has the story. And federal government pulls SSS3 pupils out of WASC, or examinations. That's on page 25. 7 dead as explosion rocks oil facility. Eagle Star Onuachi test positive for COVID-19. All that on page 31. That's on the Nation. Now, Ize Iyamu accuses PDP leaders of lacking tact. Teachers reaffirm support for Obaseki. It's on page 6. Magu panel widens probe. Top EFCC NFIU official to testify. Anti-graft chief grade for 10 hours. Salami promises fairness, justice. Now down 2 soldiers dead as troops kill 17 insurgents in Borno State. DHQ military better trained and equipped. It's on page 8. Bio.
Well, let's start with the critical news about resumption of school. The Minister of Education, after virtual Federal Executive Council meeting yesterday, was categorical that government will not reopen anytime soon the schools until it is safe to do so because of COVID-19. Malam Adamu, after the week virtual meeting, said final year students preparing for senior secondary examination will not be allowed to return to school, contrary to the earlier indications. The minister said that the newspaper journalists, I don't know whether journalists are misquoting the Minister of State for Education or maybe quoting what West Africa Examination Council said and made it into a story. The minister was categorical. Schools will not reopen until it is safe to do so. Vanguard reports that its checks indicate that the Nigerian Union of Teachers, the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, and the National Parents-Teacher Association had actually held meetings and approved the situation that JSS, SS3 should resume. But as it stands now, there's no resumption until it is safe to do so. COVID-19, yesterday we had 460 new cases and 15 deaths. Total recorded cases is now 30,249. 12,373 of our compatriots have been discharged, while 17,876 are still receiving treatment. Our death toll yesterday has increased to total now 684. Brazilian president, you remember him? His name is Jair Bolsonaro. He tested positive to COVID-19 yesterday. You recall that he was one of the world leaders that has been treating COVID-19 with levity. In fact, going into public places, not wearing masks. He made it liberal about mask wearing until the Supreme Court in Brazil pronounced that for public health reasons, it is mandatory for people to wear face masks. Yesterday, he declared, make it a point of duty to wear face mask because this COVID-19 is like rain. It is coming on everybody.
I thought he said it's hooks.
Already, Brazil has 1.72 cases of COVID-19. It is the second largest after United States. The deaths in Brazil is 68,055. 68,500. 4 airlines resumed operations yesterday, and the flights were from between Lagos and Abuja. COVID-19 protocols were observed on the aircraft before entry into the terminal building, through the terminal building, and onto the aircraft. Originally, turnouts were said to be very low, but passengers commended the initiative that protocols were strictly observed. Passengers' turnout was poor, but COVID-19 commercial flights also to resume fully in other 3 locations within any time from now. A serial killer has been arrested in Akinyele. You recall that in the past 1 month, there have been series of killings, especially in Akinyele local government area in the suburb of Ibadan metropolis. There was the killing of a 29-year-old pregnant woman, 2 undergraduate girls, and 1 young boy. A special advisor to the Oyo State Governor, Fatai Owusheni, says that the person behind it has been arrested, and he has led the police and investigators to the ritualists who are behind it. So far, those are the key issues, except that unfortunately there was an explosion at an MPDC outfit yesterday, and we lost 7 of our compatriots that were working there. All the other members on the platform have been accounted for.
Well, I was just wondering, on the question of schools reopening or not reopening, and WAEC announcing the dates for the examination, I think it's important for there to be sufficient clarity on this issue. Now, the Honorable Minister of Education said yesterday that schools will not reopen. Now, some schools have already reopened, in Oyo State, for example. Now, is the directive going to be to the Oyo State government to say, look, get your pupils back home because the schools are not going to reopen? Is it only federal government-controlled schools, as the minister said in part of his statements yesterday, that will not reopen? And then if you say that WAEC will not, of course, direct when schools will resume, that is fine. But WAEC has already indicated the dates for the commencement of the examinations from the 4th of August to the 5th of September. Now, WAEC doesn't hold examinations alone in Nigeria. It's West Africa, the English-speaking countries on the West African coast. What is the situation in the other 4 countries? Have the timetable, timetable and the times are actually for the exams been streamlined along all of that? Now, that's one leg. The other leg of the issue is as follows. For those who are in their final year, at least we heard that students should be taking online classes. And some of them should also have access to electronic teaching. And you had programs on radio, programs on air. So a number of the students have been preparing themselves for their final examinations. Now you're saying that the exams will not hold. To say, well, fine, on the one hand, you may ask, it may not be out of place if the students were to lose a session. For those who are in government schools, that's fairly easy for the government to pronounce, in the sense that the government can say the fees that you paid for the 2019-2021 academic session should be rolled over to the following year. But government is not the only provider of education. There are pupils and students in private schools. And if you are in your final year, they say a year has been cancelled, now resume for the 2020-21 academic session. Our private schools also going to grant forbearance and say that the fees you paid should not be carried over. And these fees that they pay in private schools, those fees run into hundreds of thousands. And in some cases, in final year classes, some of them pay over ₦1 million. So where would the money come from at a time that everybody is broke?
Well, it's a very difficult situation. And let's take it from the issues one by one. The issue about state schools, already the minister has said that already he has advised states that announced resumption of schools to reconsider the situation, because his argument is that it is better to have safe children than rush to open schools and risk putting children in the way of death. Some officials of the Nigerian Medical Association have also advised that it's better to lose an academic year than to rush to open schools and lose children. But all those economic indices we have indicated are also there. The conflicting contention now is with the challenge with the West Africa Examination Council. With NECO, it is our own domestic examination council, and we have control over that. You have 5 West African countries under the auspices of WAEC, and they have agreed that this is the timetable for August to September 5. If Nigeria chooses that schools are not open and there will be no exams, it means that Nigeria is staying out of the exam, but there's every likelihood the other 4 countries will likely go ahead with their examinations. But the implication is that our children will lose 1 year.
Must schools reopen before exams are written?
Yeah, that's another question. I mean, must you reopen before exams are written? People are already reading in their homes, if you just late exams, particular dates.
There are external candidates.
It has implications, because sitting for WAEC and NECO becomes a prima facie qualification for you to be able to admitted for the university. So the JAMB examination that has already been sat, of what use will it be?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's a big problem.
All of the issues have to be considered holistically, Kirian. Yeah, because JAMB already had its policy meeting, and admissions were supposed to begin sometime in August or September. Are you now going to say, fine, in the next academic session, there will be no UTME, the scores you wrote this year will be carried over until next year, until the students are able to write their exam. But the key thing is that if students have been undertaking online courses and preparing themselves for their exit exams to see whether SS3 or JS3, must they resume before they write those exams? And when we say those in their exit classes should resume, as was stated by the Presidential Task Force, it didn't say that all schools, all grades of pupils or students should resume.
It's only the final year students. It's very frustrating for the final year students, particularly that they've been encouraged to continue to do online continuous revisions
online
preparations.
Okay.
Yes.
Now to editorials, sustaining Nigerian economy via FIRS stamp duty initiative.
Yeah, well, stamp duty initiative, this editorial is by the pilot, and it's happened on the fact that it is a fiscal policy that the Federal Inland Revenue Service is happening on strictly now. And with the dwindling oil resources, the editorial is saying that it becomes a veritable avenue for government to pool resources. Already it says that the Federal Inland Revenue has pulled about 8.5 trillion already as revenue in the first quarter. That is a good thing. But a lot of people do not know about stamp duty. Several times, I think on one occasion, Kingsley mentioned it on this program, that stamp duty and other deductions that are there at the financial institutions, are they remitted to the Federal Inland Revenue Services? So if these are remitted, it becomes a very good avenue to supplement revenue that is scarce now. And he's saying that the new management and the Federal Inland Revenue is actually approaching it directly. And stamp duty is payment you made for every transaction that exceeds 10,000 naira in bank, whether the account is personal or corporate.
Somehow, I'm sure we all remember, because we're all of age, in the past, that some practices just appear to fizzle out until you get reminded. There are certain transactions you made, and you were required to purchase a stamp of a certain value, and then you affix the stamp, to the particular document as evidence, of it being official, and it's signed across.
It is still done today.
But for most transactions, for your rent, if you are a chief, you're also a
rent, and therefore, if you enter the sale of buildings, sale of structures and what have you, many transactions really require stamp these days.
Stamp duty. So nobody was just bothering about getting the stamp, so it's been done, all right, get it done. So I think it's a way of letting us realize that this is the way to go.
All right,
particularly with electronic financial transactions.
Bayo, we would like to thank you for today.
Thank you.
As usual, see you tomorrow.
God willing.
You are watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And next will be our conversation for the day.
Also known as COVID-19, is spreading at an alarming rate all over the globe, including Nigeria. With the number of infected persons in Nigeria increasing daily, prevention is better than cure. Coronavirus has no cure. The virus spreads from one person, who affects two persons, and by the time the affected person is isolated, the two persons have affected four, and it keeps spreading. You must take preventive measures to save yourself and that of the people around you. Always wash your hands with soap and water. Put distance between yourself and others. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay at home if you're sick and contact the proper authorities. Together, we can cut down the spread of the coronavirus. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network.
Welcome, dear. Have you washed your hands?
Inside my house again. This thing not the key black man.
I don't know if it's misinformation or poor hygiene that will kill you first. Coronavirus is real, and good hygiene practice will save your life. Anyway, no hand washing, no eating.
I will not take care of it. That's what I pay.
Coronavirus is real and it's on the rise. But you can help yourself and help others to be safe. Remember, we can stop the spread. It's in your hands.
This message is from the Akinfade Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency with support from MacArthur Foundation.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
Nigerians, signs. Coronavirus is dangerous. It can kill. When you see this sign, high fever, cough, shortness of breath, drowsiness, pneumonia, don't panic, don't hide, don't embark in self-medication. Promptly visit the nearest medical facility. Report all cases to the nearest hospital. Prevention is key. Avoid contact with infected persons. Avoid crowded areas as much as possible. Wash your hands regularly. Use hand sanitizers. Your life is precious. Stay alive. Live long. Live right. This message is sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture and the Nigerian Film Corporation. Nigerian Film Corporation, powering possibility.
And today we are taking a look at situation reports from different states. And as a prompt to our conversation this morning is a background report by Abdulmalik Adio.
From February 27, 2020, when Nigeria first diagnosed an Italian of COVID-19, the figures have risen to over 26,789 cases spread across the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. According to the Nigerian Center for Disease Control dashboard, as of July 8, 2020, over 169,629 samples have been tested, with 17,012 active cases and discharged patients numbering 12,108, with rate of mortality put at 669. Experts say the grim reality occasioned by the fear of coronavirus is evident in teaching hospitals in some states of the Federation. Apart from panic referrals and rejection of patients across major public hospitals, the existing poor ratio of available health workers to the national population may further plunge deeply the devastating effect of the pandemic. Findings reveal that the increasing figure of casualties with over 100 health workers across Lagos, Katsina, Akwa Ibom, and Borno, to mention a few states, may have dire consequences with an already overextended health service. As federal and state government continues to pay attention to flatten the curve of COVID-19, how much effort is being put at reading community transmission? What is the response mechanism across state? This and other issues guests will explore as they take on situation report from state.
Many thanks, Abdulmalik Adio, for that background. Now, joining us from Delta State via Zoom is Ephraim Egoago, who is a public health nurse at the Delta State University Teaching Hospital in Ogara. He's also one of the volunteers of the COVID-19 response team in Delta. But Ephraim Egoago, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
A very good morning to you, sir.
All right, and from our Ibadan Network studios, we'd like to welcome Dr. Taiwo Bode-Ladipo, who is the manager of the Oyo State Task Force on COVID-19. Dr. Ladipo, delighted to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
From Bauchi is Dr. Rewando Mohammed, is the Executive Vice Chairman of the, Executive Chairman, really, Bauchi State Primary Healthcare Development Agency. It's a pleasure to have you this morning.
Everyone.
And in our studio here is Dr. Ejike Orji, Chairman, FCT Medical Subcommittee on COVID-19. You're welcome.
Thank you, and good morning.
All right, gentlemen, let's begin the conversation with Ephraim Egoago. Ephraim, tell us, somehow Delta State has been recording an increase in number of COVID-19 cases, and some of those who've been hit are high-profile individuals. Exactly what is happening in Delta?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. Well, we've been having some increase in COVID-19 cases in Delta states. And the beautiful thing is that the experiences we've had with our patients has been remarkable. Because so far we've had good outcome, our intervention, and the patients basically that have been discharged have all or can all testify to the good works that the staff, the caregiver of the various isolation centers, what they've been doing, the tireless work they've been doing to ensure speedy recovery. So basically, what I would say is it's been a wonderful experience, been a wonderful journey. The only challenge basically is that is level of awareness of this COVID-19, which has been a challenge basically. But as I can say that the level of awareness is more compared to 2 months ago, where people find it difficult to accept that COVID-19 is actually real. But now they have seen people who have been discharged, people who have attained full recovery, those who have tested negative, and now people are coming to terms to the realization that COVID-19 is real. And that can be evidenced by the number of discharge you can see from our various isolation centers on a daily basis. So basically, with regards to this contest, I can say that it's a wonderful experience, and those that have been discharged, they are okay. They've been a follow-up, regular checkup to monitor them. And so far, the feedback has been great. It has been awesome.
All right. What challenges are you having? Maybe this question is too early in the day, but then let's have an idea of the challenges you're experiencing in Delta State with respect to perhaps some of the protocol required, to administer perhaps drugs and, in fact, general administration of COVID-19 in this state?
I will speak for the Delta State University Teaching Hospital with regards to this question. In the issue of the caring for our patients, which basically is what I'm going to focus on, it's quite difficult when you have a patient who have been admitted, and especially the asymptomatic patients, because you will agree with me that we have a higher percentage of persons who come down with this virus who are asymptomatic. Most of them tend not to believe that this is real. They have those who are in the denial states and who will tell you what we just have is mere malaria. We don't have COVID-19. So as caregivers, one of the things we focus on basically is that we look at a whole aspect. You would agree with me that man basically has various components which has to do with the psychological aspects, so the social aspects. So we look at all of this and we see how we can address this. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to do with the treatment plan. Irrespective of whatever it is, we have a treatment protocol which we follow. And once they meet this criterion, they are going to be admitted in the isolation center. We have been having results, which is a good thing for us. But one challenge we've had with various people is the fact that most people, once they come in, they have this denial. But as caregivers, we keep re-emphasizing, because once this denial sets in, there's every likelihood that this individual may not comply with the drug regimen or with our treatment protocol. So what we do is we try to make them accept, we try to make them see that this COVID-19 is real. We try to work with them closely in terms of counseling and health education. And by the time they go into the centers, for those that have been admitted, who go into the center, they see patients who have recovered fully, waiting for discharge, and they begin to appreciate what the health giver is doing. So with regards to the treatment protocol, we actually in Delta, we have specific guidelines which we follow, which have been designed by the COVID-19 response team in line with the state CDC. Once we start up this protocol, with regards to if these patients are symptomatic or asymptomatic, and after 14 days, after 10 days for asymptomatic patients, we do a test, which most likely, from what we've been having, over 85% of our patients have come out negative and attained full recovery. So the key information I want to drop here is this: early screening, early intervention is the key, and that is going to go a long way in helping for full recovery.
All right, Ephraim Egwagu, thank you very much. We'll return to you later on in the course of the conversation. Let's go over now to Ibadan Network Center, where Dr. Taiwo Ladipo is joining us. It's of the COVID-19 management team in Oyo State. Oyo State, Doctor, of course, is one of the states of significant interest, considering the number of infections arising in that environment. Why are you seeing such a spike in terms of number of infections in your state?
Good morning. Oyo State took an initiative in looking at the cases across the state. The state's large, and we instituted community testing across 10 facilities in the state, and that covers perhaps the length and breadth of the state. And you will agree with me that having 10 testing areas in a single state, giving chance to people that have signs and symptoms and actually fall into the priority lines of testing, gives the opportunity for a large number of people to get tested. As we speak, Oyo State has tested well over 9,000 people. And within the next couple of days, we should have gotten over 10,000. And with more tests, more people are found. And the results are actually showing that there is a remarkable level of transmission that is going on in the communities. And Oyo State is trying to make use of the data that we have to be able to tell what efforts we might have to put in terms of looking at the current protocols that we're having and see how best we'll be able to place the state on a better state. Thank you.
Thank you. Where we have Dr. Rewan Mohammed, Executive Chairman. Okay, it's not all right. The Zoom is not yet well set for him to talk to us. Then Dr. Ejike Orji, Chairman FCT Medical Subcommittee on COVID-19. Abuja is also having a spike, in coronavirus cases, and we would like to know which areas are most hit, by the virus, and what is happening with respect to treatment at the different centers, in the FCT.
Yeah, thank you for having me this morning. When the project started, I would say the attack on the coronavirus, we found out that the initial transmissions were around Wusetu and Maitama, and those were the imported cases. And then the search was now, where has this virus gone to? And then what happened at that time was to follow the house helps of all those people who were living there. And that meant Mpape, Gishiri, Mabushi, Gariki village, Jahi, Jabi, Lube. And at the end of the day, we found out that the transmissions mostly were around Mabushi. In fact, a greater percentage of the community transmission was in Mabushi. If you've ever been to that place, you'll know that it's a very highly concentrated slum, as I will put it, just behind the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing.
That's Mabushi village itself.
Yes, Mabushi village. And then the next place that had a very high rate of transmission was Gariki village. And then, of course, in that order, you had also Lube, and then you had Jahi Jabi area. So, but the FCT Human Service, Health and Human Service have also gone beyond the AMAC. We've gone to Abaji, gone to Kuje, gone to Gwagwalada, so there's some level of transmission, but the major transmissions are actually in all these areas in the area council of the municipal area council, AMAC. So those were the things that we found out. And so this meant that the committee advised the minister that you have to continue to invest in trying to find out how much of this is going on in Abuja. And then if you look at the number of tests done already, Abuja has the highest per capita tests. Well over 20,500 people have been tested. And then if you look at the number of people who have been confirmed to have COVID-19, it's almost about 10% of those people, about 2,300 or so. So, and that meant a very high level of number of patients coming up. Initially, when we started, we used the data that we had at the time and said we'll project in 4 months, we should have at least 1,000 COVID-19 beds in Abuja to be able to manage certain. As we are now, we have about 1,030. And then, so if you also look at the discharge rate, it's quite commendable. Out of the 2,332 people who have been confirmed, the number of active cases is about 1,000 something. And then out of that, 690 have been discharged. We recorded about 35 deaths so far in Abuja. Now, the other area that we felt we needed to work on was public education and then community engagement. If you look at what is going on, you find that the transmission is increasing. And the reason why it's increasing is about actually threefold. Number one, there's a lot of testing going on. Number two, immediately after the lockdown, people started by wearing, some people were wearing masks, but as the lockdown continued, the unlocking continued, the face masks now became chin masks. People weren't wearing it on their faces. And then now what you see somebody asking, why are you not wearing your mask? Oh, I'm sorry. Puts his hands in his pocket and brings out his mask. So that awareness, that deep knowledge of why they must wear masks wasn't there. And in the very wonderful leadership of the FCT minister, he set up an ad hoc committee on the new normal, which will concentrate on public education and community engagement. So this is where we are now in FCT.
Okay, Dr. Archie, we'll return to the details of what you have outlined in terms of the situation report in the Federal Capital Territory. I want to sort of go back to Ibadan and bring in again Dr. Taiwo Ladipo, because we're still trying to get a Zoom connection from Bauchi to Dr. Rewan Mohammed. But Dr. Taiwo Ladipo, yes, you gave the explanation that more widespread testing probably accounts for the increase in the number of positive cases from Oyo. But there were reports some weeks ago about a certain company based in Oyo where persons were testing positive fairly frequently. We do not appear to have heard much about that company and its staff who tested positive. What exactly played out?
We had an initial case from that company that we followed through with. And by the time we found 2 more positive cases from the same work environment, we had to pay a visit. And the visit revealed the situation within the workplace. The workplace area that is quite crowded. In that space, the initial space scene, we had almost 100 people within a hall. And the hall is ventilated with air conditioning. And we felt that was enough reason for us to wonder whether the recirculated air would not be something that would be of a major concern to other members of the group that had been in contact with those people. And with that, we started having some level of trace, and the trace led us to having more tests within that company. And within a space of about 6 weeks, we were able to go through a group of 1,700 people, and we had just a little bit over 200 of them coming down positive. That led to us actually having to shut down the whole building, not just the company. And we had to run through all the various organizations within that building. And we had to help with the disinfection and seeing how best we can ensure that there is some form of compliance with the spacing within the staff of that organization and other organizations within that company before reopening. And with what what we had, that experience led us to look at other organizations within the state. And we've had advisories of government that has been distributed to all workplaces. And there has been regular checks on all other government, on all other organizations, both public and private, to ensure that there is strict compliance with this. And it's quite an experience that opened the eyes of the task force towards what is actually out there within the organized private sector, public sector as well. Because of that, there was an extension to the marketplaces, and we've had some interface with the market leaders across the large markets within Ibadan. Presently, there have been task force set up within those market areas to ensure that there is compliance with issues of social distancing, using of face mask, the issues pertaining to supply of regular water for hand washing, and ensure sanitation. And that is what is being followed through as we are speaking right now within the state. Thank you very much.
All right, let's go to Bauchi. We learned that via Zoom, that the Zoom is well set at this point. Dr. Rewanu Mohammed is Executive Chairman of Bauchi State Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Tell us more about the COVID-19 infection situation in Bauchi State in terms of spread and in terms of the capacity to carry out a test in that state.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that all is well in Bauchi State. We had a large number of confirmed cases within the last 4 days. We had no case at all. But yesterday we had only 3 cases of COVID-19. And the number of discharges and the number of confirmed cases are almost coming close together. We're actually in I can say, in a minimum control. I can't say that they were controlling, but at least the rate of discharge and the rate of admission are almost close. And Bauchi State government has actually set the task force, which has been working for a very long time. And the task force is working around the clock to make sure that we carry out active case search. Few number of cases are now coming on board. So we have to carry out active case search in the community. But we have a lot of challenges of denial, stigma, and discrimination. People are saying, no, they don't have COVID. So that denial and discrimination is the thing that is preventing our work to go on. Now, His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Bauchi State, has actually inaugurated a laboratory, one of our molecular laboratory in Bauchi State, supported by the Northeast Development Commission. Now, from there, we have another laboratory, which is coming on board today. We have invited NCDC to come and look at the laboratory for certification. And well and do, it was also supported by the checkpoint through the tertiary institution fund. We are working around the clock to make sure that we control this disease. Let me inform you that while we are quite different in Bauchi State, because the quality of services in our isolation centers and our activity at the contact tracing depends on the number of rate of discharge and quick recovery. All our patients have been discharged. We have only 9 confirmed cases of COVID-19 on admission as of today. Yesterday, only 3 actually new cases, and the rate of the mortality rate is only 13, which is about 2.5% case mortality rate.
It looks like we're having some audio interference from the Zoom connection to Dr. Rewanu Mohammed. If it's been cleared up, we can ask him to continue. Dr. Rewanu Mohammed, assuming you have some distractions around you there, could you get rid of those ones so that the noise doesn't filter into what you're saying? I know you were talking about the numbers of patients you have in the isolation centers, 9 and so on and so forth. But how do you weigh that against the persistent challenge that we face, not just in your state now, but elsewhere in the country, of people living in denial and say, no, they don't have COVID-19?
We We have this, the big trouble we have in Bauchi State is denial. And I just sent my people to come and start the active community search in the community. But the people said no, they don't want to because they don't have COVID. They are disregarding the protocol set by NCDC towards making sure that they have social distancing, hand washing, and sanitizer. They don't wear masks. The enforcement agency, the law enforcement agency, were trying to force them to actually wear the masks and then charge them with 5,000 naira, which is the order by the governor. But they are causing a lot of crisis in the state. But all is well. Our rate of infection in Bauchi State is below. And then we have 5 treatment and isolation centers in Bauchi State, and all of them and all the patients in the treatment centers are actually being managed with 3 square meals, and that is a good one that people are enjoying in Bauchi State. And the accreditation, which is very important, the 2 laboratories now are coming on board as of today. One of the laboratory that is in the ATBU teaching hospital is being fully ready, it's about 95% ready. We're waiting for the NCDC to come and actually carry out the activity in the laboratory. And the Bauchi State government is trying to see that the religious leaders, community leaders are coming on board to this communication. We are trying to carry out extensive publicity to inform the people that, look, Bauchi State has been quite different because the governor of Bauchi State is #1 senior person that got infected from the virus. And he declared that he has the virus. Along the line, the deputy governor of Bauchi State also got the infection. So along the line, he was also cured and discharged. So that has made them to understand that, look, this is real. But still in our community, in the villages, in the mosque, churches, they don't follow the protocol. Only few churches are following the protocol of social distancing, are following the protocol of hand washing. They don't even have washing facilities, but the government has actually put an enforcement committee under the commissioner of police that will actually track all the defaulters. The government also banned the going or the chaba that is going on, that had 3 or 4 people on 1 motorcycle, which is actually against the transport order. And then they banned the chaba in Bauchi State. And then the people are also not adhering to carry only 2 people in the vehicle. They are taking a lot of 4 or 5 people in 1 vehicle, and they are not wearing masks, no sanitizer. But government are looking at that, that is enforced. Because we still believe that there is one thing that I believe. The coronavirus is like a woman. If you want to marry a woman, you think that you can control her. At the end of the day, after marriage, you will not be able to control that woman. You will only live to live with her. So we need to live with coronavirus. I still believe that it's just like going to be like a malaria. We're going to continue to stay with it. We're going to manage it. And then if you have your own coronavirus today, don't think that because you are not the one that is scapegoat. But another person will get it tomorrow. If you don't follow the protocol set out by the NCDC, you are going to get coronavirus. And people should know that the government, the federal government under the task force, the task force of COVID-19 are doing a very good job in coordination. The NCDC are giving us good policy. The media are giving a good publicity. I think people in Nigeria should understand that government are doing their own role by making sure that they follow the rules and regulations so that we'll be safe in this country. It's keep on increasing, and we'll never think that this coronavirus is going for now. For the next 2 years, we are going to manage this coronavirus. I'm just telling you that we have to do our best to make sure that we contain the spread. And the people in the villages, the religious leaders, traditional rulers should please take up this challenge so that we're able to contain this virus in this country. It's affecting our social life, affecting our economy, killing particularly the elderly should know that this is not the time to move up and down. They should stay at home. Unless it is move up and down, gathering should be minimal. And look at our own during burial ceremony, you see a lot of people coming for condolences, and they don't wear, they check hands. It is regard all the protocols. We are going to continue with this virus, and more people are going to get infected if we don't abide by rules and regulations. I think I must commend NTA, other media, what they are doing for this country. Most of the president should be commended. He give all the support to state government to carry out this activity. But the individual and communities are denied.
Well, definitely the world is beginning to learn to live with the coronavirus because invariably from the way it's spreading all over all over the world, it might take a longer time than we could believe, for that to be stemmed down. Let's return to Ephraim Igwago. I don't know whether that's correct in pronunciation. He's the public health nurse at the Delta State University Teaching Hospital. Dr. Iwanu talked about the people not adhering to the rules and regulation, or rather protocol, for the fight against the coronavirus. Is such a practice, taking place in Delta State? And if yes, what is the state government doing to ensure that people, begin to abide by the laid down protocol in the fight against this virus?
The Delta State government has been fantastic with regards to publicity, with regards to sensitizing the public on the need to adhere to these protocols. The state governments have also enforced the compulsory use of face mask, use of
it looks like there's a freeze there, the Zoom connection to Ephraim from O'Hara in Delta State. All right, Ephraim, we understand that you are back. Ephraim, just continue from where you stopped. My colleague Kieran asked you a question.
Okay, I can say the Delta State government has been doing so much with regards to ensuring the people of Delta State stay safe and adhere to these protocols. They've enforced the use of face mask. They've enforced that most gatherings should not be more than 50. And if in public places, the face mask should be worn at all time, and street hand washing. The Delta State government, I can say, have been putting a lot in place to ensure this works out. And as you know, that the testing capacity has equally increased. Due to this awareness being created by the Delta State government, you see more people on a daily basis coming for testing. And this is impressive. The isolation center has equally been equipped by the Delta State government. Everything needed to work with in the isolation centers has been put in place by the state government. And this is remarkable. So I can say the state government has been doing so much. And recently they are trying to engage community leaders, youth leaders.
That's another freeze there, but let's just go straight away to Dr. Ladipo in our Badon Network Center. You saw him on the screen a while ago. Dr. Taiwo Ladipo, look, from a public health management perspective, exactly why are we seeing this pervasive denial of the existence of coronavirus and therefore the unhelpful behavior of a good number of citizens and residents who go without wearing a face mask, who go outright breach of the protocols required to contain the community transmission of COVID-19. What does this mean from a public health management perspective?
Thank you very much, sir. I think the first thing we need to actually look at is in the issue of human perspective and behavior. There is very low perception of risk in this context. It's just like when the issue of the HIV came in, and everybody was quite, perhaps I use the word scared of the fact that, okay, you could have it. And that unfortunately led to the stigma. And the stigma is what is actually driving the major reactions that we're seeing now. Unfortunately for us, when this came into the country, it looked as if it was something that was imported. We made it look as if it was an imported thing. And the initial public acceptance of it was that it's something that came from the other climes. And it is certainly a disease of those people that are affluent enough not to be traveling up and down out of the country. And unfortunately, we were not able to change that perception on time. It took quite a while because the initial cases truly were coming from those people that actually did have international travels, and it was virtually almost celebrated. And by the time we now started having it going down the communities were actually certain, almost certain that that was what it was, and it has nothing to do with those of them that are living within these climes. And by the time we now started approaching it from that point of view, it was quite difficult to have that behavioral change communication. And for me, I think the major thrust now is how to ensure that people understand the risks that are involved, understand that perhaps what their roles are is not just for themselves, but whatever they do for themselves has a larger consequences on the people around them. And if people come to be aware of that fact that what they do has an overriding effect on the community, then perhaps we might start changing our perceptions to those things and move forward. That perception has to be changed, one. Secondly, the communication that should go out forthwith is about how to understand that the coronavirus is something that might be with us for a while, but then we need to adapt with it and create a new norm for ourselves. And that norm is something that we might have to continue to entrench in our lifestyle. And that lifestyle is what is going to affect whether this transmission will be kept in check or will be allowed to fester. Thank you very much.
All right, let me remain with you. The Oyo State government some time ago reportedly spent about 2.7 billion naira in the fight against the spread and its containment. How did that play out in terms of the way and manner that was spent? Could you just explain? Because some persons are also thinking that that amount is quite humongous.
Thank you very much. The amount spent, I'll look at it basically on two prongs. One, it is perhaps looking at the issue of capacity development. Capacity in terms of the structural and the infrastructure to be able to contain that spread. Before the advent of the COVID-19 response in the state, we had virtually little or no capacity for response for infectious diseases. As we speak, the state has been able to construct a 100-bed facility that is an infectious disease facility. It has the capacity to take, to manage from the point of diagnosis, treatment to discharge. And that has been actually seen by even the Director General of NCDC, who expressed delight as what he has seen. And quoting him, he said, it's a facility that can actually not only take Oyo State into cognizance, but be a regional hub in this center. And we've been able to also look at the spread of that kind of a facility across the state. Presently, we have isolation areas that has been developed in Awe, which is quite close to Oyo, Ogbomoso, Shaki, Ibuora, and another one that just was launched by the governor of the state last weekend in Ibadan. So that is a major problem, a major resource utilizing factor in the state. The second one is the issue of capacity building in terms of personnel. The state looked at that in terms of not just within the public domain of Oyo State, but it was extended to the teaching hospitals as well as the private hospitals that are within the state. And that is expected to be able to show up the confidence within the healthcare sector to ensure that people can be seen. The healthcare provider will be able to have the confidence to see, and then we are able to manage as much as possible to ensure that lives are kept in health. Other areas are the issue of community mobilization and social communication. That is still ongoing. I cannot say that we've been able to have it all in that regard, but with what we are now using, we're trying to mobilize the leads in communities, in marketplaces, in workplaces, and we want them to be able to look at them owning the system so that the fallout of all the protocols that are set in, all the advisories that have been put together will be quite utilizable. And with that, it's quite an Among Us sum, as you stated, but looking at the health of people, that is something that would have to be spent if one has to go forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you once again, Dr. Ladipo. Let's come back to the Abuja studios. Dr. Ejike Orji, I still would like to return to the issue of the pervasive denial of COVID-19 amongst the larger population, and therefore what you find as the open disregard of precautionary measures. Yesterday, markets were supposed to be open in Abuja. If you went to any of the markets, you'll find that people were just going about their normal activities with scant regard for the consequences of their conduct. Now, there's also the issue allied to all of this, which is the stigma. Coronavirus is like a common cold. It is not a social disease. It's not like one of these sexually transmitted infections like HIV and so on and so forth. So how did this stigma arise in the first place from a public health management perspective? And how can we deal with it and bring home the reality of the fact that COVID-19 is here and it's a killer?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that question. If you look at fighting the coronavirus, the key thing is to understand three major aspects of the disease, and that will also form your risk communication strategies. One is the biology of the virus, the second is the transmission dynamics, and then finally the social and behavioral aspects of people in regard to the disease. And what has been happening, I would say, just globally, not even in Nigeria, is actually creating public awareness about the disease. There's still a lot of room for improvement in the area of proper public education and community engagement. If you remember, earlier on when I made the first listing, I did say that in FCT here, the minister has set up an ad hoc committee which will really do this, to get into the communities, engage them, do proper social mapping, and bring out the leaders and work with the leaders to get to the people. I always say this, when we opened up my office, the first thing I did was for almost 1.5 hours, use a felt pen and flip charts. And I took my staff through the philosophy of the disease and the philosophy of the engagement with the disease. And after that, I said, what should we do? I was so shocked. They said they didn't understand the disease this way. So for us that are in the forefront of fighting disease, I think we should do more in terms of this public education. And that's also what is leading to the stigma. The stigma, even the big men, when you say you're sending people to their house for them to come and collect sample, you say, no, I hope you're not sending ambulance, or you want to evacuate people. So a lot of people are also in denial. The reason is also the way people respond to people who they have pointed as having COVID. You see people just disappear. So it's a paradox. On one hand, when they say somebody has COVID, everybody will run away. So that means they know that there's a problem. On the other hand, people are pretending nothing is happening. And it's because of the way the disease, the outcome of the disease. 80% we have already seen in a place like Nigeria are completely asymptomatic. So when you tell the person you have the disease, I'm going around doing my normal business, and you're telling me I have a disease. So it's a major, major problem. And that's why the risk communication strategy would attack that. If you watch yesterday, the ITV did go into the treatment rooms in Asokoro and in also in Idu. In fact, the secretary of the acting secretary of Health and Human Services in Abuja here, Dr. Kawu, was interviewed in Asokoro Hospital, and he made at least this shows that this is happening. So a lot of people are now getting engaged on that. So it's important for people to understand that disease can kill, even though the fatality rate is very low compared to Ebola or Lassa fever. But the difference with this disease is the number of people they can infect per unit time. So even though Lassa fever has a higher case fatality ratio, but the spread of Lassa fever is not as fast as that of this particular disease. Let me give you a simple scenario. If you have about 1,000 people infected within 1 day, and case fatality is 2.4, and you have 1,000 people, 100 people infected in 1 day, case fatality is about 25. You can see that 1,100 will give you more people dead. So these are some of the distances. But the important thing is that people, there must be cross-learning. We're learning from each other. We must make sure that we focus on the disease. And the reason why people must be very careful, they must protect themselves, is that in FCT here, there are a lot of cases in between and betwixt. Are they positive? Are they negative? And if you are in that particular position, you are very ill. If you don't have a positive test, nobody will put you into an isolation unit. And if you are also not negative, most hospitals will not put you into their isolation units, because that means if there's any other person in that, ICU, that person is going to be infected and may die from COVID. So that's why the danger we have right now is that a lot of hospitals are now being overwhelmed in terms of who are they and there. So it's important that we know this, because until the testing capacity is done so that we can have a 24-hour turnaround, it's going to be a major issue. So the best thing is to stay safe and not get infected.
Okay, now let's go back to Ephraim Gago once more. Let us know what the state government is doing presently to ensure that community spreading of coronavirus is contained, because we know already that there are certain communities in that state that have been infected heavily by coronavirus. So let us have an idea of all right, I'm just learning that Ephraim is not there. Then to Riwano, who is in Bauchi State. Sir, give us an idea too of what the challenges you have. I think you mentioned some of them, in your opening comments. But again, let's have a more detailed of, coronavirus treatment, coronavirus sensitization, and what have you. You also pointed out the fact that some taxi cabs who are not supposed to carry more than 3 can carry up to 5 or 6 as the case may be. So which means that certain people in Bauchi State are not adhering to the protocol. What's the government doing about that? Because if you allow them to continue that way, then of course the spike in the virus will be on the huge side.
Or fail not to do. It's an activity of individual. You can see that wearing of face mask is a positive behavior. Not wearing of face mask is negative behavior. So we have positive and negative. Now we have our medical personnel who are attending to patients. We have 58 of them that got infected because they don't want to adhere. wearing their personal protective equipment like masks and gloves. They are taking this for granted. We lost one of them out of the 58. Now, the state government is looking at, for example, who are the people that are infected with this virus. We find out that most of them are businessmen and students. And they constitute the bulk of the people who are infected with the virus. And they look at and see the category H, they are the active people that move in the community. And they realize that most of the people are not dying because most of the people that die are elderly with comorbidity. So they think that it is a joke. But people are just going to get infected and get treated and go. But what if you are the one that there's one person that actually died out of the 30 people that died in Bauchi State today? He is about 52, but he refused, he rejected, he denied, he stayed at home for over 15 days. Before we know it, he was in severe coma. He died immediately with protein. So the state government is taking proactive measures by going door to door with the risk communication, going from one village to another, informing the public with pamphlets, trying to see how to sensitize them to know that COVID-19 is real. And then that has been going on in so many local governments as of today. In most of the local government, we have activated our risk communication by local government and local government. They reach out to the working women, reach out to traditional rural. They're also reaching out to all the people, the students. All the students are at home, but they are reaching out in radio, television with motorized vehicles, trying to inform the public. And that is very important, and it is going to support us. Now, the federal government is on capacity, is trying to establish its community support center, which is another area where we are going to capitalize and involve our people to come out to the community support center so that we'll be testing them over there and giving them information about the virus. So that this behavior that we are doing to get the virus infecting our families, our community, will reduce. Now, we want to carry out active community search. We inform the public that we're coming to the need. The first community we went, they rejected us. That's a big issue for us now. Now, the capacity, we are supposed to carry out 200 testing per day in Bauchi State. But yesterday, we were the chairman of contact tracing and surveillance. We only had 9 samples yesterday. So we really had a lot of issues which we are trying to see how we can synthesize people in different languages so that they understand that this COVID-19 is real. They carry out all activity that they can get infected. That is the reason why we are really worried in Bauchi State. And then the business and should not continue. The government of Bauchi State has given a lot of motivation to their workers. They pay him twice weekly. They pay their allowances for all the workers. And the people are really happy because they are working very hard to make sure that they contain the virus. The federal government are supporting us all the necessary things that we need to know, particularly the NCT and the headline. And then
Dr. Riwan Mohammed, would like to pause you in the meantime and go on this short break. When we return from the break, we'll continue with the conversation, along with, of course, we're taking the tweets that have come in from our viewers.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19, a corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 22 55 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
The number of the COVID-19 cases in Nigeria is increasing daily, with many more tests ongoing. The battle of testing, isolating, treating, and attending to the affected persons rests heavily on the shoulders of our health workers, constantly putting their lives on the line and at risk to contain this virus, save and protect the lives of millions of Nigerians. To these health workers, we at the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, on behalf of millions of Nigerians, say a big thank you for all that you have done and are doing. To the security agencies enforcing the lockdown and every other frontliner, we say thank you for putting your lives on the line to save ours. There is no amount of words that can quantify our gratitude. Thank you. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
You're welcome back. Let's go to Dr. Taiwo Ladipo. Dr. Ladipo, Oyo is the third state with the highest number of COVID-19 cases. May we know one of the reasons, or the reasons really, why this upsurge? Is just because of the population of your state, because of carelessness in terms of ensuring that people maintain the protocol already, designed to contain the virus in the country?
Very much, sir. The figures rose when we started having some form of community testing. When we started out the response in the state, we were actually going to our suspected cases at home, having the testings done. And then we realized that we had quite a number of cases to follow up with. And we had to devise a way by which we started having them coming in, either walk-in or drive-through, based on the invitations that we gave from the task force and the Emergency Operations Center. And from then, we started having the rising numbers. And that was one of the reasons why the state now went ahead and extended that level of testing across the state in 10 different locations. And when we actually started that, we were testing more than 100, at times more than 200 tests in a day. And with the large number of tests that were done, you have to agree with me that the results were catching more cases, and we're seeing the rising number of confirmed cases, and that took us to the third position in the country. That is still ongoing, and efforts are currently now being placed on institutionalization of the testing at the general hospitals, to utilizing that as a regular form of testing, as it were, in the health facilities, so that at various days of the week, or perhaps there is times, people will have the opportunity of going on invitation, and based on the meeting of the protocol that has been set, to go and have their tests, their samples taken for testing. Another reason why we also started having more cases was when we had a second laboratory within the state accredited by NCDC. So as we speak right now, the level of sample taken, the sheer volume of the samples that are taken per day, and then the proficiency and the prompt release of results from the lab is actually what is responsible for what numbers we're seeing. And we believe that going that route is something that will be of benefit to the people of the state, because we'll be able to make informed decisions based on science, logic, and the data that we generate in that regard. And that will be utilized going forward. And I can see that if this is something that is followed through by the state, it will be perhaps worthwhile to say that we might be able to devise ways and means in containment as soon as possible. Thank you.
Dr. Taiwo Ladipo, thanks once again. Let's come back to Dr. Ejike Orji. Dr. Ejike Orji, we had, of course, on Good Morning Nigeria discussed the issue of the infection of health workers in the course of the pandemic, and therefore the subsequent attitude of caregivers at hospitals turning back patients and requiring them to either go undertake a coronavirus test before they are admitted. Otherwise, what do we know about the infection rate amongst caregivers in the FCT? And then what has also been the attitude of hospital staff to patients who come in for attention?
Yes, there has been quite some infections in FCT as of 2-3 weeks ago, about 150 of them have been infected. But mark you, most of these infections are not really at the isolation centers. They're just a tiny number of that. It's mostly in the public and private hospitals who hitherto have not taken cognizance of all the IPC procedure, that's infection prevention control measures. And those are the ones that have fallen victim to. And another thing is, in terms of patients being turned back, what is happening if somebody, let's say somebody has a cardiac problem and the person is very dyspneic, that is breathless. Because breathlessness is one of the cardinal symptoms of COVID-19 disease. So when they are taken to hospitals, unless a hospital has a holding bay, which is what have been advised to happen in Abuja, that all the hospitals should have at least 2 or 3 beds as a holding bay. And in that holding bay, when you triage a patient, that means triaging means you have looked at this patient. Is he most likely to be COVID-19? Go this way. If it's not COVID-19, go this way and go straight into the hospital. So in those holding areas, they are supposed to be treated as if they are in a hospital, but with due care. So that means the doctors and nurses and all the hygienists will wear PPEs. So that is what is now being arranged. But because that is not so perversely available, so some patients, when they go and that holding bay is full, they can't take that patient into a normal distance. Then they'll be referred to another hospital. As we speak, is a major conversation that is happening that we're trying to see how to make sure that does not continue to happen. And the reason also is that if the results do not come out, that is when the samples are taken and they're not come out immediately, at least within 24 hours, that means people will be held in the holding bay for a longer than required period. And that means they'll fill up that space again. So it's tied to the ability to test and get the results quickly. And that's why the COVID-19 COVID-19 committee, ably led by the Dr. Aliyu Modibo, the former minister of FCT, he's the chair of the overall committee, through the resource mobilization committee led by MK Ahmed, it's raised some funds. And we want to use that fund to buy a level 3 molecular laboratory to do PCR tests. That way, we can focus on those ones that we need to get a fast turnaround time. That is what is on the works now. Within a few weeks, that will come on stream. And once that is done, it will reduce this thing, because the high number of patients that are being seen now, based on the ease of the lockdown and people are just behaving the way they like, the infection rate has increased, the testing is ramped up. 2 days ago, almost 100 cases in one day was seen here in Abuja. So you can see the number of cases. So even the NCDC laboratory is swamped. So, and that will mean results are not going to be coming out as fast as we want them to come. Yes. But like I said, the important thing is to know that you have a challenge. The next thing is to what are strategies you're doing to overcome those challenges. That's what's going on right now.
All right. We have some tweets here, Kingsley, so we can go through them. Comrade Alajin Gala, he says, in Borno State, my governor, Professor Zulum, is doing very well in this terrible time of pandemic. He is visiting communities and distributing food and non-food items to vulnerable and less privileged, and prompt payment of workers' salaries.
Jack Solomon, some key guidelines were issued with respect to public places. And they include mandatory wearing of face masks, adherence to temperature checks, strict hand washing and use of sanitizers, observance of physical distancing, and ban on public gathering. Sadly, we're not observing the rules.
Mike Anyako says it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than community transmission being read as a result of age-long inclusiveness in Nigeria. But this can be ameliorated by aggressive public enlightenment by NOA, traditional institutions, NGOs, and faith organizations.
Okay, there we have Akejo Olakpaju says the unified response strategy is not working as expected due to diversity. NCDC should change the strategy for active surveillance and regulation and allow each state to address the concern on a local government basis and, where possible, put strong measures on invasive community transmission.
Delejek Solomon says the coronavirus pandemic is much more than a health crisis. It requires a whole of government and the whole of society response. The resolve and sacrifice of frontline health workers must be matched by every individual and every political leader to put in place the measures to end the pandemic.
This one is coming from Chris Simeon. Says the efforts of NCDC, PTF on COVID-19 and health workers in trying to stop the spread of the virus at community level are, in a sense, not working. Many people don't believe COVID-19 is real, therefore they ignore all safety protocols.
Law Alpha C. There are many measures adopted by both the federal and state agencies of government to flatten the curve of community transmission, but unfortunately the people are not helping matters. No thanks to their habit and lifestyle.
Festus Akimboyewa, the reality is that coronavirus will be with us for a while because some state governors have had attempts to tackle the virus. It's even more challenging because COVID-19 can reside in people without showing any symptoms, and these people can then spread it.
The spread of coronavirus, that's by Mutana Farouk, in the community is traceable to deliberate violation of the preventive guidelines. In this case, rehabilitation of mindsets may be relevant in the fight against coronavirus. How to do that is what we should be seeking answer for now.
Now, Wangogo Silvanos, now efforts put in against community transmission by both the federal and some state governments, those efforts are up to average, while others are certainly below average. Enforcement of directives from the federal government by states is not adequate, and more governors, of course, need to cascade the directives downwards as required by way of adequate sensitization.
You know, in the state governments, if the state governments are not being political and deceptive in reporting cases, the hygienic measures will slow community transmission. Also, daily public enlightenment will alert the consciousness of the citizens.
Emi Solo, state governments appear not to be doing enough sensitization, daily briefing, and enforcing the NCDC guidelines.
Okay. Wideness says politicizing every situation has become a problem for our dear nation. If a little politics and much more sincere hearts be added to this fight of the transmission of COVID-19, it would have been a drastic decrease.
Now, this is coming from a Twitter handle, says Dandy. The situation in states has improved, and testing and treatment have also improved. But in a place like Kano, where I live, that's according to Dandy, people don't observe physical distancing, and face masks are not a priority, and a lot of people still don't believe in the existence of the virus.
Kenny says it's our nature to disobey law, but enforcement of law with sincerity and fairness will reduce the transmission of the pandemic.
All right, those are the tweets we can accommodate in the meantime. I just would like Dr. Taiwo Ladipo to also address the question of infection of health workers and what has now also been the response in Oyo State to a situation where caregivers are turning back potential patients, requiring them to first undertake a COVID-19 test before they are admitted or even attended to in health facilities.
Thank you very much. In Oyo State, we've seen about 18% of the total confirmed cases being that from health workers. And it was something that was alarming to us in the state. We had to review the IPC measures that are placed in all our health facilities. But we now have an understanding that the infection of healthcare workers is not just limited within the healthcare facilities. Everyone lives within the community, and some of them actually do pick it up from within the community. What has been institutionalized now is having a unidirectional flow within our system so that we reduce the chances of people having contact inadvertently within the space of work. And we feel that if that is put together with the other IPC measures, infection prevention and control measures, it would actually be something worth the while. But then we need to understand that just like what we have seen in other areas of this country, the issues pertaining to stigma is also there. And then the worst part of it is the turnaround time based on the number of samples that are being taken to the lab. Oyo State has decided within its purview to look at the issue of holding bees. Almost all hospitals now have some degree of space to hold cases that are potential or having to be suspect of the COVID-19. And then some larger hospitals have designated entire wards within their space as holding bees. The University College Hospital has a whole ward that has been turned around to become a holding bee to suspects. The state has the State Hospital Ring Road with another ward there for holding of cases. And the state is also looking at the holding bee, the isolation area in Awe to be utilized as the holding bee, because we do not have the luxury of making decisions on confirmation of those cases within a space of 24 hours. Now we're having that done within 24 to 48 hours in our state. And because of that, the need to have that holding structure has been looked at critically so that we'll reduce the stress, the strain on the health system. Currently, too, the healthcare situation, the healthcare structure in the state has been reviewed. Health workers, both in public and private sector, have been given areas of referral so that if there are suspects, there are lines to call, there are health facilities to refer those cases to, where they will be held before the confirmation of results and then moved to isolation and treatment centers. We think that putting that together, we will be able to perhaps reduce the chances of rejection and then turning back patients to go back home where the chances of reinfection or infection of other members of the community would be rife. And once that is done, we hope that it will reduce the issues with community spread. Thank you very much.
Okay, we don't have much time left anymore, but maybe we have enough to ask Ephraim, who is in Delta State, to do a closing remark, so to speak. Let us know the challenge. Well, I asked this before, but let's know other areas that are so challenging to the state's ability to contain this virus.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. With regards to this, obviously there are some challenges, and these challenges has to do with regards to most of the health workers working in various treatment and isolation centers. These health workers most times have the fear of contacting this infection. We also have the challenges of having individuals who come into the center and who will tell you categorically that they don't have this virus. So the state government has been doing so much in terms of sensitization, creating a lot of awareness. And like I was trying to say earlier, that the issue of face mask has been enforced in the states. The issue of hand washing and hand gel too, it's something that is more common and it's seen in various parts of the states. But irrespective of this, the state governments can still do more. They are still trying their best. So in closing remark, I would say our experiences there and our challenges are basically with regards to the care of patients, the fear of being infected during the course or line of action or duty. Another thing again that we are also aware of is the fact that some of these patients recover earlier once they come to the centers early enough. That is once the test is being done. So in generally, I think the state government is doing a good work. I will keep commending them because it's not easy to equip the 6 treatment centers and over 5 to 7 holding bays in the states. The general message is this: COVID-19 is real. It is not a death sentence, and people recover from it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ephraim. Now, just one point I would like Dr. Ejike Oji to speak to, because we have also taken on that subject matter on Good Morning Nigeria. How are patients with COVID-19 who have comorbidities being treated at isolation centers? A person has a kidney problem, has a liver problem, has a coronary problem, or even cancer, and then they are at an isolation center. Who cares for them?
Yes, from the word going FCT here, what happened was that we categorized the level of care into 2. One, mild to symptomatic to mild, and that's what YEDU was created, isolation center with about 506 beds, because we know majority of them will go there. Then Asokoro National Hospital, Agwagwada Teaching Hospital, those areas are for moderate to severe to critical. In other words, anybody with comorbidities can be seen and treated in any of these 3 hospitals as we speak right now.
Now, of course, I would imagine, Kieran, I mean, this is any person who has a comorbidity would have had a specialist who had been caring for that particular individual, and therefore have the case history and treatment regime. But if you suddenly find yourself in a new location, how does the new specialist take off from that?
Sort of underlying ailments, they usually have particular drugs, that are administered to them. But I wouldn't know how they will combine that with that of drugs used for coronavirus if both illnesses are in one person, as we call it, a comorbidity.
Yeah, that's the hallmark of medicine. A doctor is supposed to be able to combine all the, all the morbidities in a patient and find and navigate the best way to make sure that patient gets treatment. We do know that one of the comorbidities that is very dangerous for COVID-19 patients is renal disease. So in other words, any drug you're given, you make sure that the dosage of that drug is not at the same as somebody with a normal kidney, because it's the kidneys that will remove that drug. So you have to reduce the dose. So any specialist can handle any patient, so far as that patient has a history. At the worst, the history can be called from the patient, from the doctor that is already seeing him. But hitting the ground going, any doctor on an emergency basis can handle any patient regardless of who has been treating that patient. That is a specialist.
Okay, I think we have actually come to the end of the program, but I think we also have enough time to ask Rewan Mohammed to also do a closing thought.
Thank you very much. In Bauchi State, we realize that we can not cover everywhere in Bauchi State. We want to decentralize our activity to all the general hospitals with the treatment center. And we have carried out a lot of training for all of them. And then we have, Governor has given us funds, make sure that the 26 general hospitals in Bauchi State are now treatment centers. We also want to decentralize the activity of contact tracing, because we know that we can go by zone. So we have 3 zones in Bauchi State, and we have now building their capacity so that they'll be carried out community testing, and then community support group, and then risk communication are also increased to be able to reach the community and inform them about coronavirus. It's very important. And we told the people that, and we enforced that no going into like a supermarket without washing our hands, no entering without wearing face masks, no entry. The rule is now enforced in Bauchi State. All the supermarket, you can go in without masks, without washing your hands, using your hands. You can't go in. I think that is a way we have to enforce our rules and regulations, because people don't want to hear good work.
All right, Dr. Rewan Mohammed, Executive Chairman of the Primary Healthcare Development Agency of Bauchi State, and also, of course, a member of the COVID-19 team in that state. We'd like to appreciate you for being with us on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. And from Delta, that's Ugara, where you have the Delta State University Teaching Hospital. We're joined by Ephraim Egwago, is a public health nurse. Ephraim, thanks a lot for being with us on the program this morning. From our Ibadan Network Center, we're joined by the manager of the Oyo State COVID-19 team, Dr. Taiwo Ladipo. Thanks a lot for being with us on the conversation. And here in Abuja, Dr. Ejike Alje, who's chairman of the FCT Medical Subcommittee on COVID-19, will thank you for your insights.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that does it for our conversation segment. Let's go over now to our sports desk.
Simi Ajayi was in action for promotion's sake in West Brom,